Indoor air is also much worse than outside because outside we have the UV light from the sun. We have the wind, we have rain, we have trees, we have oceans, we have lakes. Nature, by default, is the world's greatest air purifier. If you take a car and you put in very unpure fuel versus pure fuel, the engine works better. It works more efficiently. And our bodies are no different. Air is our sleep fuel. It's our thinking fuel during the day. It's our exercise fuel when we're working out. So when we start working out, what do? We increase our respiratory rate because we need more air. So when all of a sudden you can now turn your bedroom into a clean air sleep sanctuary, and now you're not breathing that stuff at night, overwhelmingly often what happens is people aren't bothered by seasonal allergies anymore at all.
All right, brothers, welcome back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project podcast. Today, we're joined by Mike Feldstein. He is the founder of Jaspr and an air quality expert. Today's episode is all about how the air you are breathing on a regular basis in your home is having an impact on your health, and how cleaning up the air in your home is going to benefit your sleep, your energy, your performance, the health of your family. And Mike is an expert in this area. He's been doing a lot of work in wildfire restoration, air quality consulting, and he realized that there was a big gap between commercial air scrubbers and stuff that people are using to purify big wildfire type air. And there's this gap in our own homes where we don't have the right air filters. And it's a huge issue because we have a lot of health inputs like food and water, but we're missing air. So Mike, I am grateful that you get to come on today and educate us on air quality and tell us about Jaspr, an air filter that you produce that I am in love with. And I have one actually in my office right behind me. So welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Fit Father Project Brotherhood. We're happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. So, basically to kick it off, one of the main points that you're a champion of is the fact that we overlook the importance of air. So please speak into that in relation to all these other things we focus on when it comes to our health.
And I'll speak to the fact that, I only gained this air awareness. My background, the way I spent my 20s was basically disaster chasing. Not like getting into the eye of the hurricane or the tornado, but after a flood, fire, hailstorm, earthquake, after a catastrophe would ravage a city, me and my team would mobilize and we would restore, rebuild homes and buildings that were catastrophically affected, and massive mold remediation projects. So we weren't your restoration company that you could call from a kitchen fire or a little drip leak. We would specifically do catastrophes. So we got to see a lot of stuff that most restoration companies would never see because of the traveling nature of the business. And when we would test a home, before we would remediate it, restore it, and then again after for a clearance test, I got to learn basically the cleanest you would ever see air in a home was after you would remediate mold. It kind of makes me think about the Western medical system. You go get a blood test and they're like, we'll call you if you're dying. But other than that, they're not going for optimal. They're just going for not critical. But you could be getting chronically ill and the doctor says you're totally fine a lot of the time. But they're not really trying to help you get as optimal and get as healthy as you can. So when I would be testing homes, the standard of what was acceptable for air quality in homes and buildings was very suboptimal. And you teed it up quite well, but after floods, fires, for mold projects, we would use massive industrial air scrubbers. So these things look like photocopiers or subwoofers. So they were amazing at cleaning the air. They would be 10 to 20x a residential air purifier. But the downside was they were very loud and very ugly. So my journey kind of began by trying to create something that was commercially inspired, but beautiful and quiet and smart. And it took me several years to do it. And so the air awareness for me happened by being in these catastrophic zones where after a wildfire in California or up to British Columbia, doctors' offices would be lined up down the hall with a lot of kids, especially kids, elderly people with CPAP machines, kids on nebulizers. Everything was exasperated. And I got to see whoa, when there's a contaminated air situation in a city, doctors are exponentially busier. Functional medicine docs are busier. Everyone's symptoms are dramatically exasperated. People are really sick. And often they don't even realize it's the air that they're breathing. So I'm glad or grateful that I got to find this perspective of the importance of air, because my own health got really compromised when I'd be in these disaster zones. So I started to equip my house with all of the restoration equipment and monitor it. And when I would move into homes, our air was horrible. And if I was there for months at a time, it started by first optimizing my own environment. And yeah, so, we can live 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and only 3 minutes without air. We eat 2 pounds of food, drink 2 liters of water in a day, and we breathe 10 to 20,000 liters of air per day. So just from a straight up consumption standpoint, we consume so much more air than we do. With our water, we don't realize it, but we drink it and we pee out a lot of it, and the rest of it goes into our bloodstream and through our body. And air is the same. So some of it we exhale, but a lot of it we keep. That's how we get oxygen in our blood, and that's how we function. So, people are worried about microplastics in their water, not realizing that they're breathing so much more microplastics than they are drinking. And I just think it's fascinating that, the first thing we do when we're born is we take our first breath. The last thing that we do before we die is we take our last breath. And our air awareness is so low because humans are so good at adapting to uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
It's when we sleep, we don't eat or drink, but we breathe. Our body literally can do it for us when we're unconscious. That's how core air is to our survival. So somewhere along the way, another analogy I like to use is what water is to fish, air is to people. And if you saw fish, it's like, if fish are in a really nasty fish bowl, the first thing you would do would be to clean the water,
Right.
not to medicate the fish. And us humans are in our own, like fish that are in very polluted parts of the ocean. They don't necessarily swim to cleaner parts of the ocean just because they're in the water the same way we're in the air. So yeah, our general air awareness is very low because it's something that we're doing consciously and unconsciously. So I just wanted to start off by leveling why I think our air awareness is so low and how I'm on a mission to help us increase that awareness by bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah, it's a really powerful conversation and angle, especially for people here in our Fit Father community who have focused a lot on food and movement and sleep. And this is an area of major optimization. And it makes me think of an experience that I have when I go to our family cabin. It's like a 4-hour drive from where I live in Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale area. And when I smell that fresh mountain air, it's just real nature. It's about 10,000 feet elevation. I realize what good air smells like. And it shows me in contrast, like, holy crap, I must not be breathing air that's quite this amazing. So it's only really in contrast that we experience this. And then the other thing that, just to add a little medical background, obviously stuff we breathe in affects us and gets into our bloodstream fast. Everyone who takes an inhaler for asthma, they're literally getting albuterol or something into the lungs and into the bloodstream. You smoke a marijuana joint, it's going right to your bloodstream, into your brain. Stuff comes in through our lungs, and the heart is supplying blood to those lungs, and this oxygen exchange happens. So it's significant, the stuff that kind of gets into the blood. And we have a lot of small particles, as I know you're going to talk about, that can get in. My question now is Mike, how bad is our indoor air actually? Let's say someone's living somewhere where they don't have wildfires. They just living home, but maybe they have carpets, maybe they have some fans. How bad is that person's air typically, and what kind of stuff is making indoor air bad?
I just want to touch on what you said about the contrast, and then I'll jump into that. It's once you are breathing much cleaner air at the altitude, amongst forest, away from pollution and cooking and chemicals and cars, you're able to realize what really clean air feels like. And if you think about growing up, especially your audience, if you think about growing up, there was no filtered water. There was just water. Mm-hmm. And then when you think back to it, you're that hose water did kind of taste a little bit plasticky. Yeah. And maybe a little leady. And now we've all realized, oh shit, that water was not good. It was not good for us at all. And once you start drinking filtered water, you become a water snob. Mm-hmm. You go to a restaurant. Do you want the tap water or the bottled? Take the bottled, or I'll take the glass water, or you travel with your water bottle. You get water filtration at home. Yep. And now, once you become aware of bad water, all of a sudden when you drink bad tap water, you can taste the chlorine. You
sure.
can taste the chemicals. So growing up, we couldn't taste it. And I was talking to someone recently. They grew up in Michigan where the water was like horrible. And then they think they moved to like Lake Tahoe or something where they have really good tap water.
Yeah.
And then they moved back to, they went back to visit their family in Michigan. You know, mom poured them a glass of water and they're like, bleh. Like, oh my God, this is the stuff that I grew up on.
Yeah.
So without, once you start drinking filtered water, you can then taste bad water because you've calibrated your taste buds. There are beautiful sensors that are in your tongue that you're actually able to experience what chlorine tastes like and feels like. And the same thing can happen with air. So once you experience, especially it's very acute, like if you have really clean air in your home or in your bedroom, and then you go outside or you go to someone else's home, you can now start to feel dust, feel pollen, feel mold, feel pet dander. So this is a perfect segue into what's actually in our home. So there's a regional component to it. So most parts of the world are very moldy. So whether it's West Coast, Florida, Southeast, New York, Boston, the Great Lakes, the oceans, very moldy. And then because of the contrasting climates of cold in the winter, hot in the summer, homes aren't really, it's hard to build a home that's optimal for all seasons.
Yeah.
And how recently did humans even start building these airtight, energy efficient boxes? This is like it's like yesterday in terms of how new indoor is. And now we spend 95% of our time indoors, which is a blessing and a curse. And so there's the regional component, which impacts the mold and the allergens. The bigger the city, the more pollution. And that's just, car exhausts, restaurants, everybody's cooking, the bounce sheets from people's dryers, the chemicals in their home, the rubber from the tires, the industrial fumes from the factories. If you live in a rural environment, they still blast glyphosate and other chemicals and pesticides on the farms. So it's not really something in a modern world you can totally avoid. Like I always tell people, like, the best thing you could do is move to the mountains or the jungle. But for everybody else, we have to work with the environment that we got. And indoor air is typically 5 times dirtier than outdoor air. And if we test the air in a bedroom with like a $5,000 particle counter, we'll typically see over 1 million particles, sometimes 2-3 million, between 0.3 and 10 microns in size. So what does this mean? This means everything from dust mites, mold, pollen, bacteria, dead skin cells, hair particles, insect parts, pet dander, cooking particulate, VOCs, all the stuff. That's just, if you take a sample of air, you put it under a microscope, it's not as clear as you think. I'm actually starting to work with a lab that uses an electron microscope. And other than just giving you lab data, they actually show you the image of what's in your air. So you can actually see the fur and the smoke and all the particles up close. And it gives you it really humanizes it because now you can tie it to like your visual sights of like what it looks like. And indoor air is also much worse than outside because outside we have the UV light from the sun. We have the wind. We have rain. We have trees. It's this beautiful magic. We have oceans. We have lakes. We have nature by default is the world's greatest air purifier. Unfortunately, we left all that shit outside. We built these homes that are basically like Tupperware boxes. We wrap them in vapor barriers so they can't breathe. So all the outdoor pollutants come in, all the indoor pollutants from cooking and cleaning and pets and the mold once again and the off-gassing from furniture and carpets and paint and clothing. So the bad stuff comes inside. The other bad stuff starts inside and it both gets trapped inside. So unlike the outside where we have the wind and the sun and the water and the trees, we have none of that inside. So that's why indoor air is so much worse. We have no fresh air and we're trapping everything inside.
For sure. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. And like, I think that the number of treatments, I just want to comment on like carpet and flame retardants and different kind of plastic coatings that we have on all of our things now. It's like that's increased exponentially as well. And I think there's an interesting bias where many people without knowing these actual stats would think, oh, the outside air is actually the worst area. Oh, allergens and stuff like this, pollen. And
stay inside.
Yeah, it's actually the exact opposite.
When we test people's carpets for pollen, there's typically way more pollen in your carpet, in your bedding, in your couch than there is outside, even on a high pollen day.
Mm-hmm.
Because it comes in and it stays in.
I want to get into like the actual like health effects of what you see when people clean up their air. Like what actually improves in their lives when they use something like your Jaspr filter and some of the other strategies we're going to talk about in just a second to how to clean up indoor air. Like what happens, what tangibly improves, measurable stuff.
So it's kind of like, I'll just use weight as an example. And let's just say you're chronically obese. The goal is not to be super fit. The goal is to like lose weight and be like not super fat, start going for walks and get your goal is to get to like a reasonable baseline. Mm-hmm. But it usually comes down to like whether you're trying to not be obese anymore or you're trying to be an incredible athlete. Mm-hmm. It's all about optimizing your inputs and your outputs. It's like how much you move, the way you move, and what you put in your body. And, you know, once you get to like a reasonable shape, you're like, okay, like I want to increase my endurance. I want to increase my strength, my physique, my metabolic health. So it's like, okay, let's dial in our diet and our nutrition even more. Let's dial in our water even more. Let's dial in our training protocol more. And it's very like much like a scale. So, you know, if someone's dealing with like chronic mold or wildfire smoke or horrible allergens, it's like they're just looking to get to baseline. But let's say someone's already, and I'll speak to the health effects of both. But so if somebody is really unwell, it's like if you're sick, you're not trying to save the world and start companies. You just want to be not sick. You just want to sleep without a stuffy nose. You just want to breathe comfortably. You just want your back not to hurt if you pulled your back. You're not thinking about changing the world and making millions. You just want to be comfortable in your body. So for people who have horrible sleep and very bad allergies, you just want to get comfortable again. So I'll speak to sleep being first and foremost the main thing. So we just finished a study throughout the month of August. We gave 100 people Jaspers who were using Aura rings to track their sleep. And people applied who used Aura and Fitbit and Whoop and Apple Watch. But for our first study, we just decided to narrow it to one sleep tracker just to decrease the variability in the study and have a consistent data set. So the first week, Jaspr off. Second and third week, Jaspr on in your bedroom on fan speed 2 on dark mode. The fourth week, Jaspr off again. So 83% of the people have their best sleep scores ever. Like people have been tracking them from 6 months to 4 years, had their best like week or two. Their average sleep score was their best. The average person slept 25 minutes more per day. The average person got 18% more deep sleep and fell asleep 5 minutes faster, which is called your sleep latency. And the worst people were, and we quizzed everybody. They did a very thorough 8-minute intakes before they got into the study on like how much time were you sleeping and, you know, what was your sleep score before. The people who were having the worst sleeps were getting like 50 and 60% increases to their deep sleep. So if you think about it, just like first principles here, if you're in your bedroom all night long, breathing mold, pollen, chemicals, VOCs, pet dander, 1 million particles cumulatively, and then we reduce that by 95%. So I like to call my bedroom my sleep sanctuary, and I call air my sleep fuel because there's nothing other than air that fuels up my sleep. If I stop getting air when I sleep, I'm not going to be alive much longer. And if you just think about it, or if you take a car and you put in very unpure fuel versus pure fuel, the engine works better. It works more efficiently. And our bodies are no different. Air is our sleep fuel. It's our fuel. It's our thinking fuel during the day. It's our exercise fuel when we're working out. So when we start working out, what do? We increase our respiratory rate because we need more air unless we can get more efficient. So number one is sleep's going to be improved a lot. And this ties perfectly into allergies. So I created Jaspr for wildfire smoke and mold. I was never thinking about being a health optimization tool. I never saw this coming, and I'm so glad that we've ended up here because people with seasonal allergies that are like in really rough shape, bad sleep, itchy skin, the eyes, dry throat, like just an chronically uncomfortable existence in their human body. And I would have thought, we learned growing up, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, there are a lot of exceptions to that rule.
For sure.
And one of those is with allergens, whether it's mold or pollen, cedar fever, hay fever, all that stuff. So our bodies are super resilient to bad air in small doses. So if you go out and about and you're getting, breathing a bunch of pollen on a high cedar day, and then if you come back into a clean air environment, you're fine. The problem is, because of the way our homes are built, we're breathing that pollen 24 hours a day. So our body gets no time to rest and recover. So when you're sleeping at night, your body is staying in that like fight or flight defensive state, because it's while you're trying to heal, you're still under attack from all the mold, the pollen, the dust, the chemicals, the VOCs, etc. So when all of a sudden you can now turn your bedroom into a clean air sleep sanctuary, and now you're not breathing that stuff at night, often, like overwhelmingly often, what happens is people aren't bothered by seasonal allergies anymore at all, including during the day, because their stress buckets were able to drain. They were able to recover at night, and then a couple hours here and there of pollution or bad smoke, it's no problem, because we come back into our homes, we drain our stress buckets by breathing clean air and detoxing ourselves, and then we're very resilient in short periods of time. So to overall just summarize, that the benefits are sleep quality is huge, allergic symptoms way down, productivity up. A school in Finland, or a school board, they just put like small crappy air purifiers, and they did like a study across a lot of daycares, and the absentee rates of daycares improved by 18% right away, just by putting lousy air purifiers. Now you could imagine that if they increased the amount that the air was clean, it would be more than 18% better absenteeism, but also the symptom rate went way down as well. So all these kids are at school with their boogery noses and their runny noses and their coughs. A lot of that passes respiratorily. And where are they getting sick in the first place? So yeah, you feel less sick, you have more energy, you sleep better. The same way, if you eat crappy food, you feel crappy. If you drink really bad tap water, I think it's most acute for people with the food. We pay most attention to the food,
Yeah.
And it's the most like acute immediately. But the same way, if you drink bad tap water all the time, you're going to feel it in your skin and your psoriasis and your eczema and your sleep quality and your hair and your nails. And air is exactly the same. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's very similar to what your community already knows about food and water.
Mm-hmm. So now let's get into like basically some of the practical strategies that you teach people about how to clean up the air in their home, because you've made a compelling case up to this point why air is important, the benefits that we receive from getting cleaner air, and obviously air filtration systems and excellent ones like Jaspr are a key part of that strategy. But I want to first start with like, what are all the things someone can do before the air filter that can really optimize indoor healthy air quality?
Right. So Jaspr is a key part, but it is far from the only part. So just to set the stage here, Jaspr will help clean the air, but it will not ventilate your home, and it will not give you more fresh air. So what that means is carbon dioxide is CO2. And if your CO2 is really, really high, then all the air filters in the world will not help you. And a crazy thing, so the outdoor CO2 is 400 parts per million. The average indoor environment is between 600 and 800 parts per million. Once you get over 1,000, that's when things like brain fog and fatigue start kicking in. Once you get over 2,000, it's like evacuate the building. You're going to feel exhausted. So if you're ever finding yourself in a classroom, in an office, in a boardroom meeting, in a church, in a synagogue, at a house party, at a place where there's a lot of humans in that space, and you say to yourself, it feels stuffy, and I want to go outside and get a breath of fresh air, that is your body's way of saying the carbon dioxide in this room is too high. We internalize that as just stuffy.
CO2? Is it just the CO2, or is that primarily the main sensor that we're sensing with the stuffiness? It's the CO2 amount?
Oh yeah, big time.
Got it.
Big time. And I travel with my CO2 detector, like I have one in my bag right now. So what's interesting is, and I love raising air awareness. So just like when you started drinking filtered water, you could now taste the chlorine in the tap water. If I give you filtered water and tap water, it's not like 2 bottles of wine. I mean, I'm no sommelier. I really can't tell the difference. But if you give me filtered water and like bad tap water, it's very apparent. Like we can tell the difference now. Now, if we all, I love doing this test with people. It's super fun. You'd be shocked. So next time you're sitting outside with 5 or 6 people, tell everybody to guess, or do it in the morning when no one's looked at their phones yet. Doesn't really matter though. Say, everybody, think right now, what is the temperature in this room or what is the temperature outside? And write it down on your phone, write it down on a piece of paper. Everyone's usually within 2 to 3 degrees of each other. Like sometimes within 1 or 2 degrees. How could that be? Well, you have temperature sensors, you have a thermometer in your skin, and you've calibrated it based on how you feel because you look at the thermostat and you look at the weather every day. So, no one says it's 90 Fahrenheit and the other person says 60.
Yeah.
Some people actually like have a condition where they lose, they get like injured, like spinal injuries, and they can't feel temperature in their skin anymore. So their sensors go offline, or their abilities to read those sensors go offline. And we take that for granted. Or if you're in Arizona, it's very dry. If you go it feels dry in your throat, in your hair, on your skin, in your airways. If you go to the rainforest, you could feel humidity. So let's say if you rolled around with a relative humidity detector every day, you'd be able to tell me what the relative humidity is just as clearly as you can tell me what the temperature is. You have relative humidity sensors built in. So I've now developed that same ability for carbon dioxide. So often it's like a fun party trick. People ask me what the CO2 is, I say it, and then I pull out the sensor and they're like, holy shit. So I was able to calibrate that sensor. And you can do the same thing for mold. You can do the same thing for particulate because I can feel the ease of breath. And breathing easy means the CO2 is low. It's fresher air. It's much more effortless. The pump is not working so difficult. It doesn't have to work very hard to separate the oxygen from the carbon dioxide. When that CO2 level's high, our body's lungs, our filtration system is working overdrive to, inhale and exhale efficiently. So I've tested, I was talking to this CrossFit athlete named Eric Hinman as he was preparing for the CrossFit Games. And I measured the CO2 at his gym and it was like 1700. Wow. And I'm like, it's fine, dude, if you're training like this, but when you're actually competing for your time trials, you better dial in the carbon dioxide because you're working with dirty fuel right now. This is not pure at all. When I was living in Kelowna, British Columbia in 2021, we had no forced air system, no furnace and air conditioner. We had heat pumps because this city didn't used to get hot or cold. It used to be a temperate climate. Now it gets hot and cold. But our CO2 in the house is about 650. I was sleeping 10 hours a night, waking up exhausted. Not a good 10 hours. I put the CO2 detector in my bedroom. It was hitting 3,500 at night.
Whoa.
Because we were closing the door to keep the cats out of the bedroom at night. At the time, I was mouth breathing, but we had no ventilation. And now we have 2 humans in a small room, 15 by 12 or whatever it was, exhaling CO2 all night long. So you literally watch the air quality graph and just watch it skyrocket. And then in the morning when we leave the bedroom, it would plummet. So the solution for us ended up being we would leave the bathroom fan on, leave the door to the bathroom open, and then we would leave the bathroom fan on through the night because we couldn't leave our window open because there was a lot of wildfire smoke and it was hot and cold. So the bathroom fan was how we would dump the CO2. In our daughter's bedroom, it was less of an issue because, she was just one person with little lungs. So her CO2 was still hitting 950. So we added like a bathroom fan to her, like a garage fan to her bedroom and then we just put in a little CO2 sensor. So when the CO2 would hit 1,000, it would run for like 10 minutes. And that kept it totally in check.
It makes me think of like indoor plants would be a good idea then for this exact reason, right? Are there any is that true? And then are there any good plants you would suggest?
Nah, I wish. I feel bad. I was preaching this for years. So NASA did a plant study like a few decades ago. Unfortunately, no one's ever been able to recreate the study. And also, trees are amazing air purifiers, but literally we would need trees in our home. So the best analogy I could give you is if you put a space heater in your bedroom and close the door, it can meaningfully heat your room. But if you try to heat your house with a space heater, like you put it in the living room, literally it will do nothing. Or if you put it in your garage, it literally will do nothing. Yeah. So like the analogy I use for like Best Buy and Walmart air purifiers, it's like trying to heat your bathtub with a kettle. The kettle is amazing at heating water to make a cup of tea, but it can't heat your bathtub because, and that people have tried, you can't do it. The water is going to cool down far faster than you could heat it up. So it's too small to get the job done. So I've tried it, man. I've gone in little rooms. I put 10 plants in there and I put all my air quality detecting gadgets in there. I can't move the CO2. I can't move the particulate. I can't move the VOCs. However, when I go to like the rainforest, the CO2 is like 385 or 390. Like deep in the woods, there is more pure air, but plants are great for like feng shui and vibes and stress and aesthetic. But if you had enough plants in your home to improve your indoor environment, it would be offset by the humidity and the pests that you've brought inside. Like at the end of the day, pests don't want to live inside. They're not happy with that. They want to be outside. So use them for vibes, but unfortunately they do not really decrease carbon dioxide. What does decrease carbon dioxide is opening your windows, leaving your vents on. So let me go into some of those like free tips.
Yeah.
If the air quality outside is good, which Tesla, Apple, Google, all of them now, when you look at your air quality or your weather, they all show air quality now as well. Or if you Google air quality and then where you live, it's getting much more prevalent. And this is great. So if the air quality is good that day and it's not super hot or super cold, like opening your doors or opening your windows is awesome. Especially if you can crack 2 windows on opposite sides of the house, especially when you're cooking, which is the thing that you do that pollutes your air most inside. That's going to be a big win. If it's cold or if it's hot or if it's a bad air quality day outside, then using like a bathroom fan can be like a reasonable, moderate way to dump the air, a little bit more controlled than opening your windows. But opening windows is awesome. Another thing is, like I said, cooking is the number one way that we pollute our air inside. So another thing that you can do is you can, first of all, test your range hood. Make sure it's actually working. So the first way to test your range hood is to put I call it the tissue test. So take a tissue and put it up to the vent and make sure that range hood is pulling the tissue up. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, that tells you your range hood is not actually, it's not exhausting. It's not venting. It's not doing anything. And, the same goes for your bathroom fan. Make sure the fan is actually pulling air. Part 2, when you're cooking, if you can, especially when you're boiling stuff and it's not annoying, use the back burner of the range hood instead of the front burner. It captures much more of the particulate. Makes sense. Another easy thing that you can do is you can make sure your range hood is actually venting outside. So a lot of people's range hoods, especially folks who live in buildings, it literally just vents into like a wall cavity, your attic, the other room, into the cabinet. It's not actually venting anywhere. This is a big problem because the whole reason you want to exhaust it is to exhaust it out of your house, not into another room. So make sure your range hood is actually venting outside. Same goes for your bathroom fan. Your bathroom fans have to be venting outside. If they're not, they're venting in your attic, which gives you a lot of mold in your attic because you shower, you run your bathroom fan, and then you dump all that moisture into your attic, and then you have a huge problem with mold in your attic, which can then spread. And then when your house is backdrafting, that moldy air comes back into your home. So the ventilation points are a big deal. I think having a CO2 detector is nice. I use one called the ARANET 4, ARANET 4. Other people I've seen people use one called the Inkbird. And I use an Inkbird sensor on my cold plunge. I think it's a pretty decent product. Both are Amazon products. But the ARANET 4 is cool because it has a 4-year battery life. So I keep it in my bag. I keep it in my car. I travel with it. So you can use it in your bedroom once or twice to just see, like, you don't need it. So with your CO2, you don't need to really monitor it all the time, 24 hours a day forever. It's not like a thermometer, but like doing a check to make sure that your CO2 is staying reasonably good at night. And then knowing like, yo, if you're in like a building or I was in a WeWork doing some work and they have those like little telephone booth things that you can work out of, and the CO2 is up into the thousands. I actually was recording a podcast, so I brought out the CO2 detector and we were just like watching it go up, and I kept opening the door every 10 minutes to dump the CO2 in your car. I've used my CO2 detector in my vehicle, and I've seen this done. I've done it many times in many different vehicles. The CO2 in your car will go from 600 to like 4,000 if you use the recirculate mode.
Yeah.
So you're like on a long drive, you're like, I just need to open up the window and get some cold air. No, it's not cold air you're seeking. You're literally just bathing in carbon dioxide, and you need to purge that from your vehicle immediately. So a CO2 detector and just being like ventilation CO2 aware is a really low hanging fruit that doesn't require much investment or any filtration. That's a great place to start.
Got it. And now when the iPhone or Android gives you an air quality index, what is that? Is that a combination aggregate of CO2 plus perceived pollution metrics? Like, how does that number come to be, and what does it mean?
Yeah, AQI varies slightly based on cities and regions and countries and stuff like that. What makes up the majority of AQI is PM 2.5, which is the same thing that the Jaspr is reading on the screen. So that's the PM 2.5, by the way. The reason that's the size that you'll hear talked about the most is what we use on the Jaspr is because that's the particle size that is small enough to enter your lungs and bloodstream. So particles that are smaller than PM 2.5 are so small that we breathe them back out, and particles that are bigger than that get captured, so they don't get into your lungs and bloodstream. So PM 2.5, which is 2.5 microns in size, is the most harmful particle size because that's what gets inside us and stays inside of us. So yeah, AQI can have like sulfur dioxide, nitrous dioxide, ground level ozone, pollution, but PM 2.5 is the particles, particulate, is the biggest factor of your air quality index.
And that was actually one of my favorite things when I actually got my Jaspr and hooked it up here in my office, is that it has the PM 2.5 sensor like right there in the center of the unit, and you get like a little color code if it's good or not. And it's cool to look over, like I'm at 004 right now.
Thought you'd be a 4.
Yeah, so it's great. And
4 is good. 4 is good. 4 is good. What's important to note though is like, and we're working on improving our user interface and our education to explain this better. But like, that's not the only number. So if someone is painting or buys a new couch or a furniture and there's formaldehyde and VOCs, your Jaspr will still turn up to fan speed too, but that PM 2.5 number won't change. It's like if you're getting a blood test, there's not just like one test. You could test your blood for a ton of stuff. If you get your water tested, it's not just like one test. So theoretically, you could put a Jaspr in an environment. It could show green and say excellent, but there could still be a lot of mold in your environment. So
would it be on a higher fan speed if that happened? Would it be kicking the Jaspr? Oh, wow.
No. It can't detect every single particle and every single type of particle size. So mold, unfortunately, we don't have the technology yet. We still need to send mold to a lab in order to test it. There's no like mold thermometer. There's no mold sensor yet. I'm sure eventually we will have one. That'll be very exciting. But what's interesting, so Jaspr filters thousands of things, but it detects, dozens of things. So it's not the ones, it's not the only number that matters. It's the most important number, and it's the most relevant thing to modulate your fan, like cooking, like cleaning, like pollution, like wildfire smoke. So it's the 80-20 of sensors. It's the most reasonable middle ground of sensors, but like, it's good. It's important for people to know that like it's filtering your mold, but it's not detecting mold. It can't. That technology is not there yet. So theoretically, it could be excellent for PM 2.5, but have another issue. So it's still working to clean that thing up, but it doesn't mean it can present every single thing right on the screen. I wish.
Makes sense. I have a couple questions now to kind of get into like the practical aspects of if someone's
Sure.
interested in getting an air filter. How does something like a Jaspr compete with someone's like HVAC system? It's like, oh, I have an HVAC system, obviously. Like, so why do I need this? What's the response to that?
So I spent the first 3 years trying to build an air filtration system that goes into the HVAC, by the way. And I really wanted it to work because I thought it would be such a beautiful, simple solution. So elegant, out of sight, out of mind. You already have a furnace and an air conditioner. Why not just install the air filter and we're good to go? And we already have over 100,000 HVAC dealers in the country. So we could just equip them with what they need and it would be a beautiful solution. Unfortunately, it didn't work as planned because your home's HVAC system is designed to heat and cool your home as energy efficiently as possible. And energy efficiency is at direct odds with environmental health. So it's designed to it's designed to trap and keep the heat in the winter and the cool in the summer. So also when it was sized, it wasn't sized to be an air filtration system. Mm-hmm. So when you put on a whole home air filtration system, it creates a pressure drop. It wasn't engineered for that. It doesn't have the fan or the airflow for it. So all of a sudden you dramatically decrease airflow, which not only now your CO2 is worse, your heating and cooling is worse, your furnace motor can blow very easily. Now, if we're just talking about like a regular furnace filter, not anything aftermarket, your furnace is not an air filtration system. It's a heating system. So I actually use one of the least, like I use like a MERV 8 in my furnace. I don't use a MERV 10 or 12 or 13. No way. Your furnace doesn't come with that because same thing. It creates a pressure drop. You want your furnace to breathe freely. Yeah. Your furnace, what do they call it in your house? They call it a furnace filter. That filter is for the furnace. It's not for the human. Mm-hmm. It's designed so large chunks of pet fur or dust or a nail or a screw or a trunk of drywall debris during a renovation doesn't break the motor of your furnace. Mm-hmm. So that's why that exists. It's so large particulate don't get into your furnace. So by using a decentralized air filtration system, also with an HVAC system, it should ideally only run 10 or 20% of the time. Right. Especially, you don't want it to run 24 hours a day. That would be loud, annoying, and expensive. So when your whole HVAC system is not running, it's not filtering or circulating any air at all. Mm-hmm. And you want more airflow in a home. So I think about Jaspr more like a Sonos. It's like, would you rather have one big giant speaker in your living room that you have to keep on loud in order to hear it in the other rooms? Or would you rather have a Sonos or a different style speaker system where you can have reasonable volume in every room? Mm-hmm. So also, because the way Jaspr is designed, every unit has its own fan. So it's increasing the overall airflow in the home. It's not it's not taking away from the airflow of the HVAC system. Each one has its own dedicated fan and its own motor, its own filter, and its own sensor. So now we're just creating a much more healthy airflow pattern in the house. And air is sneaky. If you want to filter your water, if you want to filter your shower water, we can get a shower filter head. If you want to filter your drinking water, we can get a countertop system. We can get an RO system. We can get a sink point of use system. We can get a fridge system. If you want to filter the water in your whole home, we could get a whole home water filtration system. It's very easy. Water comes through a pipe. We filter it at the pipe. When it comes to your air is sneaky. There's not a single point of entry for your air. It comes in through your windows, through your doors, through your cracks, through your vents, through the attic, etc. So you want a decentralized system that's cleaning the air in the rooms where it needs to be cleaned. So we sold a lot of air purifiers to schools, high-end private schools during COVID. And they knew what's better? Where's the COVID going to spread from? It's going to be someone who brings it into the school and breathes in the class. So it's like, what's more effective? An air handling unit on the roof that's going to capture a small percentage of the air, like a leaky current, and then filter some of it and redistributes it through the whole school, or cleaning the air in every room where people are actually breathing it. So yeah, I would have loved to create a single system, and we could have sold a lot of them, and it would have been a lot more elegant of a solution. But that's why we focused on making a system that's silent and beautiful and steel instead of plastic and looks good. And it shows you the air quality in each room. But it also works to be an air education tool. So if someone starts cooking in their living room and they have 4 Jaspers, every single Jasper in the house is going to turn red because your HVAC system is mixing that air. So even in baby's nursery, you're cooking bacon or even grass-fed steak, all those pollutions and those particulate are filling the air in all the rooms. I don't want to be relying on my furnace to slowly clean it. I want to make sure we're actively cleaning the room in every single space where my baby's sleeping and dealing with it right there. So that's why HVAC system is unfortunately not the way to go.
Good answer. Definitely educational. So like to get one Jaspr, like how much square foot does that thing cover?
Another great question. Square footage is the wrong metric because, and it annoys me because we're up against the Amazon filters where everybody's like, not the air filters, but the little boxes you check. Now, with a TV, those filters make sense. I want 4K. I want a 65-inch TV. I want it to be cheap, easy. It doesn't work the same for air. You know, you put in extra large room or you put in 600 square feet, you make the price filter go low and you're like, sweet, box is checked. Well, what is air? Air doesn't care about square feet. For example, if you have 8-foot ceilings versus 16-foot ceilings, that's double the cubic volume. Mm-hmm. Your air filtration cares about cubic volume and it cares about airflow. So if you have a whole home HVAC system running, the coverage is greater because there's more airflow. There's more air changes per hour. The clean air is circulating more effectively. Unfortunately, people want to oversimplify marketing sometimes when it's not always that simple. So they want to say it covers 1,500 square feet. Usually in the fine print of the terms of service, it's like for 1 air change per hour with 7-foot ceilings in a single room. It's like, well, first of all, I want 4 air changes per hour, not 1. Second of all, most people don't have 7-foot ceilings. Third of all, it's not usually a singular room. There's a bunch of rooms in between and doors and walls. So, but let's bring it back to what is digestible information. So, Jaspr is very effective. And also, they don't tell you when you see covers, when it says that they cover like 2,000 square feet, does covers means cleans the air by 5% or by 95%? Mm-hmm. They don't tell you that either. You know, with thermal comfort, with your heat, you would know if it's covering it because you're like, I'm cold or I'm not.
Right.
With air, unless you're measuring it and detecting it, you have no idea what's covering. That's why we put the sensors right on board with not just green, yellow, red, but it literally says what the air quality is in real time. So if you cook, you'll watch it turn to critical and then come back down to excellent. You'll actually see that happen. Mm-hmm. So I consider coverage 80% clean. That's kind of my personal metric. So if you think about coverage 1,000 square foot with 8-foot ceilings in a singular room, we do a good job. Now, in a bedroom, 80% air is not clean enough. I want 95% cleaner air, which is why we don't have a tiny little air purifier. We only have one size. It's the size that you need for it to be effective quietly in your bedroom, but also effective for a larger open living room space. Because if we made a little teeny tiny air purifier, it would have to be on full speed 24 hours a day in your bedroom, very loud and very annoying. So we wanted it so it could be quiet. A lot of people do like fan speed 2 or fan speed 3 because they like the white noise, but we use a really high quality fan and motor, so it's more of a soothing white noise versus like a loud, rickety, teeny little motor. But yeah, 1,000 square feet. So basically it's like a good, better, best thing. Table stakes is like get one for your bedroom. Get clean air in your bedroom where you spend a third of your life where you're resting and recovering. The next best thing would be having one in your kitchen living room area, anywhere in the living room. And because Jaspr is a cylinder, you can put it right against the wall. You can put it in the corner. You can put it anywhere. In the bedroom, you want to put it on fan speed 2 on dark mode. In the kitchen living room area, you want to put it on smart mode, which automatically detects the air in real time. So I'm comfortable saying we do a great job in like 1,000 square foot living room. If someone has like a massive house, 20-foot ceilings or 2,000 square foot living room, then having two in that general common area would be a good idea. And it takes that much time for me to explain it honestly.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, I'm definitely even more inspired having one Jaspr that I've kept in my office here, but I'm thinking that I'm going to need another one in the bedroom. And I think one thing I love about this too is like with health, there's many things that we need to continuously exert effort to stay on track with. Like you got to make your healthy food, you got to get your ass into the gym and exercise. But this is kind of like one of those set it and forget it, I guess, or like make the upgrade and it serves you ongoing. So I appreciate that. It's obviously an investment of money and education to get here, but once you get it, it's like you're
I call it the
benefiting.
laziest way to be healthy.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I appreciate that about this. I appreciate that there's a lazy aspect to it because health already requires enough inputs and enough effort. So it's nice that there's some things.
You got a journal. They want you to meditate, sauna, cold plunge. It's like this never, and I'm a big advocate. Like I like all that stuff too, but, I like it's very rare to find something that's very good for you. That's very passive.
For sure,
I would say filtering your water is pretty good too. And like how annoying, what I'm grateful for about water and air is that generally, like, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but generally it's the least healthy food is like the most addictive, creates the most dopamine. The sugars, the fats, the salts are so addictive. But like, there's nothing nice about polluted air or water.
100%.
Like clean filtered water is amazing and filtered air is amazing. So I'm so grateful that at least these two air, if only the healthy food was as awesome as the clean water to take. And like I've noticed for myself, I have a whole home water filtration system and reverse osmosis at the sink. And I found that the RO water does not quench my thirst at all.
Yeah.
So I started getting spring water delivered.
Nice.
And it's like, I don't even want to drink the RO water. Like, it's just like, it's something about it is just not even satisfying for me. But yeah, with air, you just want pure oxygen. So, I mean, actually, air is not pure oxygen.
Yeah,
I should make that
nitrogen.
clear.
Yeah.
Yes, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.4% CO2, and the other 0.5% is like argon and methane and some other stuff. What also is really interesting is when we talk about breathing in oxygen and breathing out CO2, I believe when we breathe out, it's only about 4% CO2. It's like compared to the 0.4%, it's a high number. But like in school and like ninth grade biology, it feels like 100% oxygen in, 100% oxygen out, and like not the case.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, I mean, for someone who's listened up to this point, they're obviously interested in this idea of cleaner air. And, you know, having me personally surveyed all the different air filters and landed on Jaspr as one that we support here in Fit Father, tell us about where people can learn more about Jaspr or straight up just like look to get one and get one today.
So I want to make sure as a dad of two young children, I want to leave you with a funny story. So, my kids are 2 and 4, and when my daughter Ari was 6 months old, Rachel was using a diaper pail, and I'm going in there and I'm like, Rach, it stinks like poo in here. And I'm like, can you start taking the diapers outside directly? And she was, and you know, I'm the air quality guy. I have my gadgets. If you test the airborne bacteria in a baby's nursery, it's off the charts. And adults breathe 10 to 20,000 times a day. Babies breathe 60,000 times a day. And they're already up against new cribs, VOCs, paint, all this stuff. And then we leave pooey diapers in their bedroom. Those things are not airtight or you wouldn't smell the poo. So I'm like, Rach, can you start taking the diapers directly outside? And she's like, no, easy for you to say. Like, there's 18 diapers a day. I got a million things on my mind. So I was like, fine. As a rite of passage tonight, let's put the diaper pail in our bedroom. P.S. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. And she's like, ew, no, I'm not sleeping with that thing in our room. And then it clicked for her and she realized like, oh my God, like we're literally making our baby sleep in like a bacteria fest. And like, this is normal. The same way doctors and dentists didn't wear masks or gloves 20 years ago, we are going to be shocked that we don't filter our air and that we had our babies sleeping in shitbox rooms. So to any dads out there or uncles or whatever, if you know any babies suffering from pooey air that smells like poo, it is poo. And if it's poo, it's bacteria. So please help those babies. I always want to get that word out because it's not cool at all. Or at least spend one night with that diaper pail in your bedroom and see how you feel. So yeah, like you said, if number one, just be more conscious of your air. Trust your nose. Listen to your body. If it feels difficult to breathe, it probably is. Look at getting a CO2 detector. When you check the weather every day, weather is not temperature, sun, and will it rain is not the only factors for weather. If it's cloudy outside, but it's like an excellent air quality day, like get outside, like just a great excuse to get outside. But also if it's a really bad air quality day, maybe not a great day to go for a run that day. You might want to go for a walk that day and decrease the respiratory rate. So yeah, for anybody out there, we don't do Facebook ads. We don't do Google ads. No Best Buy, no Amazon, no Walmart. If we did that, they would take all the margin and we wouldn't be able to offer like an amazing service to our customers. So we have something called the life-changing guarantee at Jaspr. So in the first 60 days, if it's not obviously making someone feel better, like way better, their sleep's not better, the cooking particulate, if it's not way better, we'll take it back. We'll give you 100% of your money back. So that's number one. Number two, our warranty is badass. So if someone's Jaspr ever breaks, we ship them a brand new Jaspr. You take the new Jaspr out of the box. You put the old Jaspr in the box. We give you a prepaid shipping label from UPS, and we schedule UPS to come to your house at 9 a.m. the next day and pick it up. So you don't have to go to the store and run around and get a box. You can print receipts. That's not cool. I basically created Jaspr as the company that I wanted to be a customer of. So if your Jaspr breaks, which 2% of the time it will, it can, it's 1 in 50, that's a Jaspr problem, not a you problem. So we'll take care of that. And then the other thing is, so on our website, so this episode comes out October 28th. So for the first week, using code FITFAMILY, there'll be a $400 off discount code, which is our like biggest deal of the year. I found it's much better for me to go and educate an already health conscious audience. If someone's not already trying to dial in their food, their exercise, and their water, we're not at the air stage yet. Yeah. So if you're already more health aware, it's the right people to talk to who can spread that word and champion that message. So yeah, October 28th until November 5th, it'll be $400 off with code FITFAMILY. That's at Jaspr Co. So jaspr.co, jaspr.co. And after the, and that'll basically be about, $400 off. I'm not sure the exact percentage that works out to. But then after November 5th, it'll still be 10% off forever. So to anybody who this is not investing clean air week, totally fine. There'll be that the code will live on forever. But for anybody who's like, yeah, you know what, this makes sense. And once you've invested in the Jaspr or Jaspers once, it's a little bit over $1 a day for your filters twice a year and that lifetime warranty. So we say for a little over $1 a day, it's clean air for life, and it should be the last air purifier you ever need to buy. And if people buy a larger quantity, we give discounts on our website for higher quantities, and that bundles with the already $400 off that they would get from using your code. So yeah, for anybody out there, October 28th to November 5th, that is today, $400 off with code FITFAMILY. Hope you learned something today. And feel free to email us, Instagram us, ask questions. We don't have a customer service or a sales department. We only have an air education department. Everybody here worked in homes, consulted on air, tested air. We've all worked in the field. We were all blue collar guys before this. So if people have specific questions or recommendations that they need for their own situation, just message us and we're happy to talk to everybody.
Mike, so awesome. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for the education. I'm inspired. I'll definitely be picking up another Jaspr during the time this is out with code FITFAMILY. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Good idea. My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Success. That was
nice,
great.
Man.
I think
that was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I think it's still.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Fit Father Project podcast. If you love what you heard, please rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps spread this show to more men who need this valuable info. To watch full video episodes of this podcast and other motivational videos to inspire your training and more, visit our Fit Father Project YouTube channel. It's free and everything's made for busy guys over 40 like you. Visit youtube.com/Fit Father Project to get access to our entire video library. And finally, if you or someone in your life is interested in becoming a fit father or needs help losing weight, building muscle, and living healthier after age 40, then visit fitfatherproject.com, where you can see our proven programs, supplement line for guys 40 plus, and free meal plan and workouts to get you started. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi signing off. I'll see you in the next episode.